When you face difficulties, you do need to bounce back. It seems to me, it's a very simple thing, that if you're in a difficult situation and you feel it's hopeless, then it may be that you have to accept that the situation is as it is, but there is always one thing you can do, and that is to change how you think about it.
Welcome to I Share Hope, the podcast where world leaders share their real stories of hope and how you can use actionable hope to start changing your life today. And now, here's your host, Chris Williams.
Hello, Chris.
Ann Jones, how are you doing?
I'm fine. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks for talking today. I really appreciate your time.
That's fine.
So it is 2 p.m. in the UK. Where exactly are you located?
In a little village in the middle of Northumberland. I can look out over a stream just rolling into the River Tyne in front of me.
That's not even fair. That's so beautiful. Wow. We've never been to the UK, but my wife and I and our kids really want to visit there. Really do. Like Jill really does. We'd hope to spend a month there at some point and just settle into somewhere, not in a big city, but just to relax and slow down.
Wow.
Sounds like you got a good place. Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like you've got a good plan.
We'll see. All right, Anne, so tell me this. If I'm correct, you have read Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows faster than anyone else on the planet. Is that true?
Well, I had to do it for, I did it for fun, really, but in actual fact I was asked to do it for Sky News
Yeah.
and various other newspapers. And I've stopped competing in world championships now, and what I do is, for fun, I sort of speed read books that the press want to talk about.
Okay.
And Harry Potter wasn't my favourite book for speed reading. It was actually the Harper Lee book that came out in July.
Huh.
And I finished that in 25 minutes and 31 seconds, and there's a huge group of journalists in the room, and I was filmed by a number of TV companies, including the BBC and Sky.
No
But
way.
such a great book, and a challenging read. I really enjoyed it. I liked Harry Potter. There was a lot of hype around that.
Yeah.
But I thought the Go Set a Watchman book was a better read.
Wow. So you read it in 25 minutes, 25 and a half minutes, basically.
Yeah, but I trained hard for that, Chris. Well, when I say I trained hard, it wasn't hard. I basically sort of, for about a month beforehand, I read To Kill a Mockingbird at a faster and faster speed every day. So my goal was to read To Kill a Mockingbird in about 45 minutes and to get a speed of about 10 pages per minute. And I was doing it for this particular event for a friend of mine who has a bookshop, and she wanted to get some publicity, and she got massive publicity, and it helped her bookshop a bit. And she lives in the next village, which is Corbridge. So it was a lot of fun to do. I mean, I think if you can make it fun, it works. Got a bit with her at one point, because she told the press that I was aiming for 10 pages a minute. And I didn't want her to tell everybody that. I thought I might not be able to do it, you know. In actual fact, I did really well on the day, so it worked very well.
Amazing. Okay, so you have 6 world records in speed reading, is that right?
I entered a competition which was held by the Mind Sports Olympiad, and you had to read an unpublished book, and it was speed times percentage of questions you got right, and I was the person who scored the highest number of points in 7 competitions in total.
7.
But though it was fun to do at the time, after a period of time I thought, well, I'll let somebody have a go.
That's nice of you.
And now I quite like doing the fun events. I think that's, they present a challenge, and I only do them if I think I'm going to enjoy doing them. And, as I said, I was able to help a friend, so, hey.
All right, so do you have a book nearby? Like, do you have one within reach?
I've got loads of books, but...
I just want to grab one and just thumb through it the pace you read. I just want to visually see what is, like, how fast do you turn a page?
We're in the lounge, and the only thing that's in the lounge are cookery books.
Cookbooks, that's great.
So present much of a challenge, really, in terms of reading. I can get one.
Yeah, go ahead. It's totally am fascinated by this. All right, so if you're watching before she comes back, so Ann Jones has won 7 international speed reading competitions, like really big ones, and she's read some really fun books faster than anybody else has on TV. Okay, so you're back now. Let's take a look at this. So what do you have in front of you? What book do you have?
Unfortunately, it's a cookbook, which is not ideal for speed
I
reading
think it's even funnier.
because it's got look lists of shopping here. I mean, hey, that you need to get to cook all recipes and so on, and there are lots.
But reading a list versus reading a paragraph, is one faster than the other?
It's depends what you want to do. I mean, essentially, if you want to scan information, you can use speed reading techniques to scan information. But if you want to read for the purpose of actually sort of enjoying a book or sort of study, you can do an awful lot of different things. If you're reading a study textbook, you can save yourself a lot of time by previewing it. And that it's not speed reading, but it's a good technique for people who have a lot to read. Have you got a lot to read?
Yeah.
Yeah, you've got a lot of non-fiction to read.
You know, I've got a lot to read for work, but what I do, I'm very much an auditory learner, and I don't read very well, honestly. So I do everything from an audio standpoint. So my computer actually reads most of the copy to me at a really, really fast rate that most people are like, whoa, I can't even hear what the guy's saying when he reads, but I'm used to it.
It's quite useful because, again, there's a big debate in speed reading about what we call subvocalization, hearing words in your head as you read.
Huh.
But subvocalization is actually very useful from a memory point of view.
Cool. All right, so hold that book up. I just want to see, so when you're reading a book like that cookbook, do you, how you're flipping a page every 8 seconds? If you're getting 10 pages a minute.
Well, what happened, Chris, speed reading is skill. You can train yourself to do it.
Yeah.
A lot of people do it. I mean, for example, the method I use isn't far away from what Teddy Roosevelt used to use, or Franklin Delano Roosevelt, or JFK, or Margaret Thatcher. What's actually happened is that the explanations for why it works have changed. What I do, I wasn't really intending to talk about this today, is I do a lot of work with people with dyslexia, and I do it on a kind of a voluntary basis a lot of the time, or I don't charge them as much as I would charge other people.
Sure.
Because dyslexia is something, in terms of reading, you can do a lot to help. The stuff that helps me be a great speed reader can help a dyslexic youngster be able to read at a normal rate. So that's why I do a lot of the things I do. Similarly, if you understand, sort of what has happened in terms of people's brains, say you've got somebody with a brain injury, you can, there's a lot you could do to remedy problems. It's quite simple, it's not a big deal.
That's really cool, because you're actually getting to impact people's lives in a way that, honestly, they would feel like, hey, there's no fix for this. I've got dyslexia, or I've got whatever it is that keeps me from being able to accomplish putting information into our heads that way, which can really slow you down in school and career and everything else if you don't figure it out.
Well, I wondered who'd actually suggested that I do this I Share Hope interview, because I thought it might be one of the dyslexic people I've been working with. I've no idea why you chose me to be on
well, I can tell you that's the easiest part of the answers that I get to answer. You've been chosen because you're bringing hope to people in a really unique way around the world. So we're interviewing 1,000 people around the world. So in theory, if you look at that, every 8,000 people on the planet gets one representative on the survey. And we're trying to really get a good grasp of what brings people hope and what drives hope forward in different communities around the world. And you're impacting a community that a lot of people aren't or don't even have any awareness of, not just the speed reading community, but the ones you're teaching.
Yeah, I mean, I do teach a lot of people how to speed read, and I do it professionally, but I also work with people who've got problems with reading.
Mm-hmm.
For example, I did some work with a group called Headway in Hexham, which is the nearest town, and at the time, the speed reading business wasn't doing ever so well because of the recession. And I had time on my hands, so I volunteered to do some work with them, the brain injured support group.
Mm-hmm.
And so with another group, which was a group of women who'd been in abusive relationships.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I was teaching, I taught them the speed reading stuff, and also things to do with memory, because for years I've been trying every trick in the trade to remember information better, because speed reading on its own isn't enough. You've got to be able to remember what you've read.
Right.
And that was interesting and inspiring. Certainly with the ladies that I worked with, 2 of them have gone on to university.
Wow.
So it's made a difference to their lives.
Yeah.
But when you get that happening, it's you can't. It's not. It's just something very special, but it doesn't happen every time.
Oh, wow. But it's special to the ones that it happens to.
Yeah.
Well, Anne, tell us this. So Anne Jones is with us from the UK, and she is answering our 5 questions of hope as one of the world's fastest readers and somebody who's helping so many other people with the skill of speed reading or just comprehension that is really unattainable for some people because of an issue like dyslexia, or because they just want to read faster for their career and they just need to hire somebody to teach them how. But either way, Anne's bringing hope to a unique people group. So, Anne, 5 questions. We ask the same 5 to everybody.
Okay.
What's your favorite quote about hope or definition of hope?
It's from Alexander Pope's essay on man. He wrote a line which is, "Hope springs eternal in the human breast." And I kind of imagine coils rather than water sloshing out, because I think that hope is resilience. You bounce back, and I do think it's part of human nature. And I think that if you're looking at what's happening now, for example, in the international scene, as far as Paris is concerned, there's terrible massacre of Parisians took place on Friday in different parts of Paris. But what was interesting was the response of the French people. They shut down the metro, the subway, and so the taxi drivers took people home. They switched off the taxi meters and they took them home, because people who'd been caught up in those events, very dazed, very bad way, they just took them home. And on social media, there's a hashtag Porte Ouverte, which stands for open door. So people who couldn't get back home could contact people who lived in the locality, and there'd be somewhere for them to stay overnight. There were massive queues. They couldn't accept all the queues, all the people in the queue for blood donors. So that was just extraordinary. Lots of small things that people did just to help other people. And I thought that was terribly inspirational. I was trying to think of some examples on a national level of inspirational people and who really have made a difference. Now, you'd think that when all hope had literally gone, say you were a 15-year-old youngster who'd been diagnosed with cancer, right, that you'd kind of give up and feel sorry for yourself. One guy who didn't was called Stephen Sutton, and I'll tell you his story because it's important in the UK. Stephen died aged 19, but in his short life he packed in a lot of things that he wanted to do. He had a kind of a bucket list. And he'd be on social media banging away on drum kit or whatever. And he had a beautiful smile. And towards the end, when he was really ill, he managed a huge grin and thumbs up like that on social media, and it
Wow.
went viral. So thousands and thousands of people sort of tweeted pictures of themselves going thumbs up for Steve Sutton.
Oh, wow.
And he managed to raise £5.5 million for the Teenage Cancer Trust.
Wow.
So I thought, you'd think, wouldn't it? No hope at all. But what he said was he didn't think about the future or feel sorry for himself. He felt the opposite. He said that his cancer had given him the opportunity to do something remarkable, which was to educate people about cancer. So if I had to sort of say I've got an inspirational hero, it would be that teenager, Stephen Sutton. But you'd think, one guy like that, surely there can't be more. But a local farmer, his name is Stuart Ridley, a young man in his 20s, living on a farm with his parents and two brothers. He loved sport and he played rugby at the Tyndale Rugby Club. And he was very well known because he was a bit of a joker. He was always playing tricks and making everybody laugh. A marvellous personality. And he had an inoperable brain tumour. And then suddenly, all the way around in the towns and villages, up and down the Tyne Valley, people wearing T-shirts saying, stay strong, Stu. Try saying that quickly. And they got wristbands and so on. And his family raised an enormous amount of money for, again, for charities associated with the illness that Stuart had. So, you'd think that was, it happens so many times, and you sort of think, well, thank goodness there are people on the planet like that, are very encouraging.
Yeah.
And we all have heroes and heroines in our own family. On the walls behind me, you'll see some of the pictures that were done by my sister Alison.
Oh, wow.
She became ill and lost her job. So she decided to be an artist. She trained in art when she was younger, and she produced some wonderful, wonderful work in a very short period of time. Sadly Alison isn't with us anymore, but the energy and the enthusiasm she put into her pictures is a constant inspiration for everybody in our family. So there's inspiration everywhere if you choose to look for it.
Wow. What a great set of examples. The pictures are beautiful. She's really left a legacy. Wow. So, and I never heard that quote in the context of a spring. I always pictured it as water gushing forth from a spring. Never thought about it being a resiliency and a bouncing back and a new life that comes from that,
To be fair, I think Alexander Pope thinks of it as a spring.
Huh.
Right? I think I'm the one that's being silly here. But you quite often hear people say, that they're hoping for something to happen, and then somebody will say in a sarcastic tone, oh, hope springs eternal, as if, they're being ridiculously optimistic. But I actually think it's the spring is quite a good idea. In fact, I did a mind map of what I was going to talk to you about here. And
Oh, I love it.
I'll email it across if you like to your assistant.
That's beautiful. Yeah. Oh, please do. Please do.
I'll put it on my Twitter feed as well.
Okay.
Anyway, so it's useful. I kind of, when I'm thinking of hope, I think of the resilience.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, when you face difficulties, you do need to bounce back.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems to me, it's a very simple thing, that if you're in a difficult situation and you feel it's hopeless, then it may be that you have to accept that the situation is as it is, but there is always one thing that you can do, and that is to change how you think about it. So, if you are in an awkward situation, for example, as I mentioned to you, suddenly work dried up, and I could have panicked. I did panic, but I thought, I've got some free time that I wasn't expecting. I'll put it to use and local community and give something back. So that's what I did. I made a lot of friends, who are still friends, and It makes a difference to them, and it makes a huge difference to me because I feel about myself.
Beautiful. So, who has influenced you most with hope? Who's given you the most hope and shared the most with you? You may have already mentioned one of them in your comments a minute ago, but
I think that there are family members who constantly inspire me. Right? They're not with us now. Some of them, I can think of my father who ended up behind Japanese lines with a group of RAF people that he was commanding, and he had to make his way back to safety, and that I think was very difficult because they were being eaten alive by all sorts of creatures, and they got malaria and so on, and one of them died. But they kept battling through the jungle and eventually made their way out. And he didn't give up. He never gave up hope. And then there was my mother, who was an army nurse, one of the ones that shipped over with the troops at D-Day. And when I was looking through her papers, she never spoke about this to us at all. She was engaged to someone, and there was a picture of them standing on the beach. She never talked about this person, and there was a little card with a menu on it saying "Je vous aime," I love you. And obviously this guy had died. But again, she and her fellow nurses were sort of working in terrible conditions in Normandy. They would have shells flying overhead. They went to sleep with a tin plate over their stomachs in case of shrapnel.
wow.
One of the nurses got a medal for rescuing someone from a burning tent, and the nurses all laughed about it because that's what they were doing day in, day out.
Yeah.
So,
Amazing.
I don't have to look far, I really don't. But I think the inspiration of Alison, who, having become ill, lost a job, decided that she was going to resume art and produced so much work in such a short space of time. I'll never forget that.
Beautiful. All right. What's been a time in your life when you've had to really rely on hope to pull you through?
I think there's always times in people's lives when you've got a family member who's ill, and there isn't a lot you can do. And sooner or later it comes to all of us that will happen. That there'll be somebody you really love who's very ill, and there is very little to do about it. I think what you do is you get through it because you reach out to other people, relatives perhaps who, we're all in this together, we're all sort of in that situation where you are sort of reaching out to others. I'm very fortunate, I've got a very supportive family in a lot of ways, brothers and sisters who care about each other. So you find the strength there. So I think if you were depressed, or you were struggling with depression, which again is something that, let's face it, we all suffer from time to time.
I do, yeah.
Yeah. The only way forward is really to think about other people. And even if you're just doing something like smiling. And in the end, that's all Steve Sutton could do. He was laying on his deathbed, bless him, and he put his thumbs up and smiled, big cheeky grin. And there's tremendous courage just to do that. But sometimes just smiling, asking other people how they are, sort of talking to them, listening to what they say, and, seeing if you can help them in some way or other. But if you make that shift from, hey, oh, to, hey,
Yeah.
you're on the way up. And it's each little step.
I agree. Oh, thanks so much for answering these questions. Question 4 is, what are you doing today to share hope with others around you? You've already mentioned some of this with your work, with your reading and helping people who aren't just clients, but are actually needing help in other ways, just comprehension reading. But anything else that you want to mention?
Well, I think the simple things that I do are, taking an interest in other people. As I said, that's fairly basic. The village where I live is probably pretty much like towns in the States. At the moment, lots of fundraising is going on for people in Syria, refugees, and there are always things like events where they're raising money for charity. That happens all the time, day in, day out. The local village hall opens twice a week for a coffee morning, so that the older people in the village who are retired can go and have a coffee and talk with their friends.
Mm-hmm.
So I support that by helping with the washing up, Chris.
Love that.
I'm great at washing up.
Fantastic.
I'm not so good at making cakes, but other people will do that. So there's always plenty of things to do if you want to help and pitch in. And they're a lot of fun when you get around to doing them as well.
Awesome. I love that.
Yeah,
Well, I think washing the dishes sounds like a perfect job for me.
Well, and make it fun. You don't just wash the dishes, you talk to the other people in the kitchen and you make friends, and there's always that, virtuous circle going on there, which helps a lot.
I love that. All right, so question 5. How can I start sharing hope? Or anybody who's listening in and watching right now, when this airs, how can we share hope? So I'm going to hang up the call here in a minute, and I'm going to go about my day. What do I do next? The simple steps, ABC, 1, 2, 3 stuff.
Well, I think what you're doing already, Chris, is more than most people will achieve in a lifetime. You're talking to people, listen to what they have to say, getting the word out about things to do. I think that's a great thing. If we think about how many people do we talk to in a year, I don't know, actually talk to, listen to what they're saying. How many real in-depth conversations do we have?
Not very many.
Not very many. And you're doing this on a daily basis. Wow!
It's a privilege. I'm so excited I get to.
Yeah, I think
It's only because nice people like you are willing to answer the phone.
I think the thing to do is to just talk to people, listen. If you see that they're looking sad, ask them if they're all right, and if they do have a problem or an issue, then listen to what they have to say about it. Sometimes that's enough. Sometimes another human being just paying attention to someone who's got a problem is a real big help. And obviously, if there's something that you feel you can do to offer help, then offer it, but check it's the right sort of help and it's what they want, from you before you dive in.
That's a good point. Amazing.
It's listening that's the important thing. And you were great at it, Chris.
Well, you're sweet for telling me that, and you're sweet for talking. You're the one sharing your heart and your story, and it means so much to me, and I know so much to... We have people listening in, I think, 45 or so countries around the world in multiple languages, and I'm not sure how the transcriptions get made. I don't do them, but somebody's out there doing them. It's really cool to watch. So thank you for sharing with people who obviously want to know more about hope. So how can we follow you and see you on social media, websites? What do you have that we can keep up with?
Well, I'm absolutely useless at social media. I'm too busy talking to people. But if you want to sort of have a look at my website, it's www.speedyreader.co.uk. And I've got a Twitter site, which is Anne Jones at 53 Leaves, which kind of I'll sort of say what it is I'm doing. But if anybody is interested in what I do, you can always drop me an email. And again, you'll find the email address on the website.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that website is speedyreader.co.uk.
Yeah.
Got it. And your Twitter handle was Ann Jones 53 reads, like reads a book.
Leaves, like leaves that fall down.
Oh, leaves. I'm sorry. Yeah. Okay. I didn't hear that right. So Ann Jones 53 leaves, like on a tree.
Yeah.
Got it.
Because essentially, I love visiting gardens, and I've got lots of trees in my garden.
I love that. And in case anybody's wondering, Ann is spelled with an E in this case. So ANNEJONES. You know, my mother-in-law's name is Ann Jones.
All right.
And you're both wonderful people.
News for you, Chris. My maiden name was Anne Williams.
No way.
Yeah.
That's truly a small world right there. That's great. So, obviously, my wife's name is Jill Williams now, but it was Jill Jones. Isn't that crazy? What a weird coincidence.
It's a very common name in Wales. You've probably got some Welsh ancestry somewhere, and so is your wife.
I'll try to figure that out. I wish I could figure out the genealogy, but I just need to take the time to do it.
Yeah. Everything takes time. You've got to figure out what you put your time into. But I think you've found something very worthwhile, and I wish you all the best with your 1,000 interviews.
Well, thank you for being one of the 1,000. It's truly a privilege to talk to you. And if I'm getting this right, we've been talking for 31 minutes exactly right now. So that means you would have read 310 pages.
Yeah.
If we had just been sitting here reading. I feel like I've wasted your entire day. You could have read another book by now.
Well, I kind of sort of think one book a day is enough. I've got to move around more. And
You just said one book a day. Most people do that once a month, if that.
it gets a bit tedious. When I went to the library yesterday, I picked out a book, and the librarian has a system, and she said, "Well, you've read that one already." So I thought, oh,
So, is there anything you pick up and you say, "Oh no, this is so hard to read"?
Romances.
Because you want to take your time and think it through and feel the book versus just information?
I just can't stand them. I like science fiction, fantasy, adventure, like sort of Terry Pratchett I really love. At the moment, there are lots of really good writers of crime fiction.
Mm-hmm.
And my favourite book of the last year has been Emily St. John Mandel, Station 11.
Okay.
It won the Arthur C. Clarke Award. I think it's really good. So yeah, I mean, it's a case of, yes, I can read a lot of things very fast, but a lot of the time, I'm doing the usual things that other people do, which is, cooking, sort of gardening, that kind of thing, seeing friends. And I think one book a day is quite enough for anybody.
All right, so just a couple fast random questions. So you're reading, you're in a restaurant, you walk in with your friends, family, whatever, and you all sit down, you open your menus. Are you like, open the menu, okay, I'm done? Or do you read it slow like everybody else?
I don't make I can read fast and I can read slow. But I've got to the point where I don't really think about what I'm doing. If I'm in a restaurant, I'll just look at the menu, and I do make up my mind pretty quickly. So it can be quite funny. For example, there was a guy who I was on television a few years ago, and they had a set of questions, and I wasn't expecting them to be in the format that they were. I thought that it was going to be done differently. So he said, "Look here," and gave me a sheet of paper. I said, "We weren't going to do that like that." And he sort of gave me a funny look, and I realised I'd read it very quickly, and he was kind of astonished. But I kind of just got so used to doing it like that, I don't really think it's anything special.
That's awesome.
My family don't really notice it either. No.
Your family doesn't, because they're used to seeing you do things at that pace. Yeah.
And I think that, you know, you don't have to read everything fast. You can read stuff slowly. But, you know, sometimes if you've got a long journey and you've only got kind of one book with you, then I'm not going to rush through it, you know. I also think 800 to 1500 is a good range of speeds. I don't think it's worth, you know, I think that's a good range, you know. I mean, the sort of speeds I have to do for events,
Sure.
I train for them, you know.
Yeah, like an athlete. I mean, it truly is an athletic skill in a sense. Yeah, a mental and athletic skill.
It is, because you have to train your eyes to follow a guide very quickly, and you have to train your eyes to sort of take in larger areas of text. So you might be reading 6 to 8 areas of text per page.
Wow. And were you a good reader as a child?
No, I loved reading, but I didn't learn to speed read until I was over 40, and I had a reading speed of somewhere between 200 and 250 words per minute, and then I read a book about speed reading, got up to about, got to 368. And then I trained, and I got up to 1,050 on the day of training. I was the slowest person in the room.
Wow.
But you see, the point was that I also had 3 children at school and a full-time job, and I needed to use it to keep on top of the workload that I had at the time. So it's a case of, you know, using the opportunities that are available to you. So I got kept on top of the reading side of the job very easily.
Brilliant. Literally. Brilliant.
Well, you know, I don't think I'm anything special, Chris. So, you know, hey, it's not a difficult skill to learn. What is special about it is that it's kind of consistently doing it.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense.
It's a bit like anything else, really.
Well, I'll let you go because you have, in the next 30 minutes, I'm sure you'll knock out another book so you can check your book a day off, and I'll muddle through the next chapter of mine.
I don't think it, as I say, it's not a big deal. It really isn't. I think what is important is the stuff that I do, which helps people who've got reading difficulties to be able to read at all. And that's the stuff that makes a difference. Yeah? And auditory books. I used to listen to those while I was doing ironing, you know, because it was the only way I could actually sort of get through a book at the weekend. You know, I'd kind of listen to them as I did the chores around the house. Auditory books are great in that sort of set of circumstances, because you can quite often do something like washing the dishes and listening to a book at the same time. So I wouldn't knock the auditory books. I think they're very good. I think the main thing is the information in books.
Yeah, it is.
That's the key issue, really.
So many out there to read. I love that. Okay, well, Ann Jones, you have been inspirational to me, and I know many others of you helped them retain information and the things that you do on a voluntary basis, from washing dishes to helping people with dyslexia to getting people up and ready to attack college or a higher education level because they couldn't for whatever life circumstance before. Fantastic. You also so humble, even though you have 7 World Speedy Reading Championships and records for reading fun books like The Deathly Hallows with Harry Potter and so many other things. You've just been a treat to talk to. Thank you for your time and your care to so many and to us. Really appreciate it.
Well, thank you, Chris, and good luck with your project.
Okay. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Our conversation with Ann Jones, such a treat. 6 or I think 7 times she has won the World Speed Reading Championship. It's just incredible. So literally we were talking for I think 36 minutes at that point. So she would have read 360 pages of your average size book, which is just phenomenal. Wow, it blows my mind. And with really, really good comprehension. So anyway, Ann, thanks for your time. Hey, you can find out more about Ann at our website, isharehope.com, or over at her website, which is Speedy Reader. That's SPEEDY Reader is READER.co.uk. SpeedyReader.co.uk. You can find our email address there. We'll also put social media links and things like that, videos, her mind map, which she held up on the screen here. If you're watching the YouTube version of this, good for you. If not, then we'll post it on the website as well if you listen to this just audio. Her mind map of hope and how that works is really, really cool. She did a really great job explaining that. So anyway, hope to see you soon. Jump in on my social media anytime you want. Chris Williams HQ. That's at all social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, wherever you want to go. Chris Williams HQ. You'll find me there, and I would love to hear your answers to these 5 questions. Please let me know your definition of hope, your favorite quote about hope, or a special time when hope has really pulled you through. Or if you're struggling to find hope like I do some days, shoot something over to me. Let me see if we can talk that through. Love to get engaged. Thanks. Talk to you soon. Have a great day. Thanks for being part of this community.
You've just listened to I Share Hope. If you're ready to make a change, head to our website at isharehope.com and claim your free copy of the top 10 actions of hope from world leaders to use hope in your own life. Thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you next time.